Mr. Men. What you doing?
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Talking Smack, where we talk superheroes, movies, animation, and comics, plus so much more. I'm your host, Josh Scar, and joining me this week is everyone's favorite anthropomorphic cat, Alex. Alex, how you doing?
Fantastic. I am feeling accomplished, and I will. You know why I'm feeling accomplished? Because everyone, we're officially on YouTube. We have a podcast playlist on YouTube.
I mean, we've technically been on YouTube a while. I did a couple of Let's Plays that no one watched besides me to make sure the sound balance was right. But yeah, yes. We're on the YouTube podcast stuff now. So if you're a YouTube podcast listener, hey, thanks for checking us out.
Oh yeah, we have all 139 plus episodes. We have the bonus episodes. We have the limited edition Talking Lasso spin-off series that is there.
Who said it was limited edition?
Well, it's over now. Ended.
But I mean, those episodes are up forever. Those aren't limited edition. But the other voice series. There you go. But the other voice you just heard there is Matt. Matt, welcome back. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Hopefully our YouTube does not radicalize you.
Well, I mean, if it's going to radicalize anyone, I think our points of views would be the better ones to be radicalized by, huh?
That's true. Hopefully it doesn't lead you to...
I was doing some test listens, and the next suggestion was the Earth is not round. And I was like, oh, all right, let's dive into this a little bit. Yeah. Space is fake, man. It's actually just all a holographic projection.
I fear if you listen, not because of the content, but just because of the subject matter, if you listen to any episode about Star Wars that has Star Wars in the title, I fear what the next YouTube recommendation is.
Oh God!
For you,
the episode where we have Matt from Decaying with the Boys, where I make the intentional joke about how birds are not real. That is a joke for the sake of a joke. That was not me purporting that birds are not real. Hopefully, the algorithm picks that up and sets you on the right path.
All I know is Matt is here. Matt is my comfort spot, and I'm excited about that.
Speaking of comfort spots, let's go hear from Antonio and Deanna over at the MILF and Me podcast, and we'll be right back.
Face it, dating sucked in your 20s, gets worse in your 30s, and your 40s, forget it.
It's a cesspool out there, and we're your flotation device.
Join us weekly for saucy chat, ridiculous love gurus,
and MILF-worthy fun to spice up your life.
The MILF and Me podcast. Every Wednesday on your favorite pod platform.
And the MILFandMePod.com.
The MILF and Me podcast.
Okay, I have to look that podcast up.
Yeah, it's from Antonio. Of course you have to. I'm shocked you're not already listening. You should be listening to it right now as we're recording.
And goodbye.
Yeah, let's have to talk over the audio.
Well, Alex is out for the rest of the episode because we already know what he's doing. He's listening to the MILF and Me. But we're doing our What You Doing episode today, where we just talk about the things we're having fun with away from the podcast, and we bring it to the podcast, which makes it superfluous. But it's fun anyway because we get to talk about a bunch of different things, and we're going to kick it off with Matt. Matt, what you up to? What you doing?
Oh boy, I am. This edition is Gamer Zone. It's a wild season if you are a gamer American. Stuff's coming out left and right, and I am playing tons of stuff. The first thing I'll talk about, I think maybe the one that I am least hyped about on my list, is I've been playing Assassin's Creed Mirage. Which is the newest game to come out from the series. It's been going for, I think this year is 15 years. This one is notable because it is very intentionally a big throwback to the original Assassin's Creed back in 2007. The last couple have been these big open world RPGs that are more focused on actual just combat and exploration. Origins, Odyssey, Valhalla. And this one is more streamlined. It's a smaller space. It's a smaller, more focused story where you're going from A to B, and yeah, it's giving you tools in the same way that you would have used in Assassin's Creed 1 and 2, smoke bombs, blow darts, things like that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all structured in terms of like cases where you're like doing a couple small quests surrounding like a main quest. So you're like, oh, this is the quest where you discover this clue or this clue or this clue, and then that all leads to a big main quest that is usually some kind of assassination, but not necessarily. And yeah, the story is kind of like nothing. It's kind of boring, which is also in line with the original Assassin's Creed. You play a character named Basim, who is originally appeared in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, but he is an assassin in 9th century Baghdad. And it's mostly just that, where you're an assassin and people are like, oh, we got to stop this guy, go get him. But, you know, the gameplay loop, especially if you're someone who's been playing these games forever like I have, is fun and kind of like comforting, a throwback. There's nostalgia there, at least for me. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, that I like the sound of that because I have Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I played about 20 minutes of it and I had to put it down because I couldn't figure out where to go for my missions or like how to progress anything.
Yeah.
And I prefer the more straightforward games. Like once it got to Assassin's Creed 4, that's pretty much when I stopped playing because I think you and I played Unity, I think was the follow-up to that, the first one on the Xbox One.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what to do, let alone like how to play with my friend that we were allegedly in the same game with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, I made a mistake playing the Assassin's Creed games because I got like a bundle, and I started with Black Flag, and I just played the crap out of that. I wailed, I sea shantied, I loved it
Yep.
all, and then I tried going backwards, and I was seeing how
You Assassin's Creeded wrong.
yeah, every game I went backwards, the game was glitchier, the mechanics were stupider, it was less intuitive. And so I never went forward because I'm like, I've hit the pinnacle. I have a sea shanty, I have a boat. I'm home.
I mean, Black Flag is like, it's a stealth, barely stealth pirate game, and it's like almost perfect in that regard. And that game rules. I don't know if it's the pinnacle, but it is close. But you know, I finished all 3 of those previous games, Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla, and they're big. They're too big. So Valhalla came out in 2020, and I didn't play it consistently. I was in fits and starts between other gaming and stuff. But I didn't finish it until about a week before Mirage came out. And there was stuff I even was like, oh, I'm not going to do this because I don't have time. I don't have the inclination. I'm done with this game. So like, I think, you know, who knows where they go from here, because I think this one is very much like specifically a throwback because it's the 15th anniversary. But you know, I think what they've been doing is fun. It's good, but it's also like too big for me. And you know, I'm sure I'll still keep trying them because I enjoy them. But you know, some middle ground would be nice, if nothing else. But
Sure.
yeah. Anyway, I mean, Mirage is fun. It's taken a backseat to tons of other games that are coming out right now. You know, it's like I said, it's kind of a nostalgic. I've been playing these games pretty much as they've come out since the first one hit in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love the franchise personally. I think Assassin's Creed 3 is a little underrated in terms of what it did for, at least for a storytelling mechanic with Connor.
Yeah.
No one's really playing those games for the story anyway. It's for the mechanics, the stealth missions.
That's not true.
But
that's not true.
We're going to get into that. We're going to get into that later. Our next crazy lore episode is going to be Assassin's Creed, so I don't want to get too deep into that now.
Maybe people aren't playing it for the story, but their story is there, and it's weird.
It sounds insane, and I love it.
Alex knows because the one game you played is also the one where they're like, oh, by the way, you're also working at what's effectively Ubisoft.
Oh, that was bizarre.
Yeah, you're a pirate, and also you're at Ubisoft.
Yeah, like they actually like scan their offices to put it into the game of like, oh yeah, you work here, you need a badge to enter this area, and you can sneak around this desk. I'm like, I've seen this building before.
Yeah, here's an iPad.
I've seen
Go scan some
presentations
QR
here.
codes. Yeah, scan some QR codes and solve some puzzles.
Oh yeah.
All right, Alex, what you doing?
Well, I'm on episode 51 of the MILF and Me podcast titled "Fuck My Work Wife," and I'm excited. Where is this going? But no, for me, it is the current season of of weird TV shows because they brought one called Found, which I call Zach Morris in the future, because it is Mark Paul Glosser as this person named Sir who apparently 20 years before kidnapped Gabby Mosley, played by Shanola Hampton, and she escaped when she was like 13, and now 20 years later she has captured him to force him to help her in her business, which is finding missing people. I'm going to objectively say it's not necessarily a good show. They do a lot of BSy things, like the missing person of the week. They're like, they get their quick story and they're just like, okay, we need to create a branded hashtag for this. We need to have 3 press conferences, and then like one scene later, all right, it is trending all across the country. Everybody's looking for this person. It's like, that's not how social media works, and that's not how any But
It's the new internet. It just works the way the screenwriter needs it to work.
yeah, but I'm obsessed with the interactions every episode they flash back to when she was younger, played by a different actress, when she was kidnapped, and this life. And so you have him younger, they have dyed his beard and everything. And he's very charismatic, but very sinister. They flash forward and he assists her with their cases, and he's still manipulating her, but she has him chained in the basement. And which is great because they don't do any like makeup. They just he has a gray beard now. He didn't then. So apparently he's aged a day and forgot his, Just for Men. But in my headcanon for this weird show is Zach Morris has finally getting what's coming to him. And now he solves crimes from a basement where he's chained up.
He's got to make up for that one Christmas where he got a homeless girl for Christmas.
Exactly.
Where can people find this show?
It's on Peacock. Apparently they filmed it. They filmed it earlier this year, but because the expected strikes, they held it all, and now they're dumping it because they have no content. But this is a good show. I like this show.
Okay, all right. What is it called again? I'm sorry.
Found.
Sequel to Lost.
Yes, it's the opposite of Lost. Everybody's currently alive, and you're not in purgatory or limbo.
I can't start correcting you on that.
That's another rabbit hole that Matt can take us down.
Josh, what you watching or doing?
I actually just last night I finally saw Barbie.
All right.
Wait, hold on. I believe Justin from the Movie Wire is on his way. If we can wait.
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fantastic. It's not entirely what I would have done, but that doesn't mean that it's not good, because I feel like with a brand like Barbie, you do get that idea that it could be an all ages movie, but you also run into a pitfall of you're just basically doing that Disney Channel original movie with Tyra Banks, who's a doll who becomes a real person, and you don't want to do that. So what do? You get Greta Gerwig and you have her make just this meta ass movie that is about women empowerment, but also it's realistic in its message, as well as just telling young women it's okay to not like women, but also men kind of suck, but not in the way that the men who really suck are going to interpret this movie.
Right. Yeah. It's it feels like you say the word patriarchy and a certain kind of person pops out of the woodwork to start shit with you. This movie is deeply interested in that, and not just how it impacts women, but also men. It's a bit of it's a comedy, but it's also a movie where Ken is in the real world for 20 minutes, reads a book, and goes back to Barberland to do an insurrection, to do January 6th.
Yeah.
It is not subtle about what it's doing. So I think, it naturally inspired, I think inevitably inspired a lot of the worst people in the world talking about it and burning Barbie dolls or whatever. But, I think it is, those people are mostly missing what the movie is actually saying, which is this affects you as well. Please listen. And like I've been saying, Greta Gerwig, she don't miss. She's good. She's great.
I saw the opening weekend. I saw Oppenheimer on Sunday. I think Barbie on like Wednesday or something like that. And if you want to catch the review, Justin Henson and I did review it on this show, and then we reviewed
that's
Oppenheimer on his. I really dug the movie. I liked what it said, but the thing that will always stick with me of this movie is, unfortunately, a Teen Titans Go to the Movie kind of situation. So my wife and I were seeing that, and that ends with Robin leaping at the screen going, "Kids, ask your parents where babies come from." and this movie ends with a kind of a similar mic droppy kind of moment where they set it up early in the film by referencing that none of the Barbies or Kens have genitals. But at the end of the movie, you think she's going in there for something else, and she does this joke, "I'm here to see the gynecologist," and
cut the credits.
And
I
snorted. This group of women in front of me stood up, and they were probably in their 40s or 50s, and the first thing I hear them saying as I'm making my way down the aisle is, "That's not funny. No woman's excited about going to the gynecologist." And I'm just inwardly, I'm laughing my ass off, because that is very true. My wife's not exactly excited for that yearly visit, but I was just like, because I love the rug pull moment of that. But the sincere anger and vitriol of so leave this on. How dare they?
It is wild to me, because this is it's an IP movie, it's a franchise movie, right? And like, there is Mattel let her get away with a lot more than you would think. Like, if it was Disney, I'm not like a Disney sucks person necessarily in terms of the stuff they put out, but this is not the kind of thing you would see in Spider-Man or Star Wars or whatever. And that joke is like the epitome of it. Like, I'm amazed they like let her do that.
Yeah, and that was the point I was going to get to, is that if I remember, reports after Barbie hit like 700 million as it was closing in on the $1 billion mark, Mattel was like, "Oh, we've greenlit 60 different movies based on our brands." Yeah. And it's like, you can't do that every time. You can't do this every time, because you're going to diminish the message of this, and you can't do that with like Matchbox racers.
Well, and this is how it is, right? Where it's like, say what you will about the state of Hollywood right now, but what happens in 2008, Iron Man comes out and is like, "Oh, we're going to do a big expanded universe." And then instead of like seeing what about those movies is like setting people off and like making them dig it, they go, "Oh, it's the shared universe thing. It's, the very like, this is just Hollywood executive 101, right? Where it's like, "Oh, the movie about our franchise that is like personal and honest and like funny is hitting big. Oh, it must be the toy thing. So we're gonna do a bunch of toy movies," where it's just like, it's like baffling how much of a dipshit you have to be a Hollywood executive, apparently.
Yeah, seriously. There's I think it was a PvP comic where they're making fun of the idea that Black Panther hit $1 billion, and they're like, what could the similarity of this to like all these other most recent big hits be? It's the cat thing. Let's make a whole bunch of movies about cats.
Well, I mean, Captain Marvel does have a cat in it.
That's true.
And a lot of the advertising for the Marvels has her cat on the shoulder.
Her Flurkin, who is wrongfully named, by the way. His name is Chewie, not Goose. Chewie. I will die on that hill.
It's an alternate universe, Josh.
That's
alternate
fair.
Timeline.
So, Josh, as a father of young daughters, not to take away from you, Matt, but I believe Josh's are a little older than yours is.
Yeah, mine
just a little bit.
Just turned 9 months. Yeah.
Almost about to hit that point where they've been out in the world longer than they were incubating.
I think at this point, she literally has been. Yeah. She was a little bit early. So.
So was this a you and Ricky movie, or did you?
This was
have
a me
like
and
your
Ricky
oldest
movie.
Okay.
From what I had heard, this definitely needed the mom and dad screening beforehand. Okay. So this one I'll probably hold off for 3 more years, maybe, from the oldest, and we'll see how she reacts then. I don't think she's old enough now to just be like, "Oh, look, real world Barbie." I think that novelty wears off after the first like 20 minutes. and then it
Yeah, you
starts
gotta-
getting into the message, and that I think she just won't. I don't think she would hate it. She'd just be like, I don't understand. This isn't Barbie's life in the dream house.
Yeah, it's maybe a little old for aiming a little higher than she's ready for. Here's a question. Do you ever wonder what the alternate universe is like where the How I Met Your Mother spinoff starring Greta Gerwig gets picked up?
Oh.
Right after, like, what would pop culture look like if that show went for 10 seasons and she didn't make Little Women or Lady Bird or this?
See, I don't know, because I swear that there's a demo of that episode out somewhere and that it was super bad.
It was super bad. I just like to imagine like how different things are if instead of becoming a great director, she was on a shitty sitcom for a decade.
She just became a shitty sitcom director forever.
Yeah.
Maybe everything else in that universe is good. Like maybe she's the nexus point of she's a great director, but everything else sucks.
Yeah, on the one hand, we didn't get these great movies, but also, we don't have an ongoing pandemic. We don't have the rising tide of fascism in the United States.
Yeah,
Is that the universe where we got Guillermo del Toro's At the Mountain of Madness?
Yeah. Yep.
We got Guillermo del Toro's Mountain of Madness. We got Guillermo del Toro's Hobbit. We got what's
Guillermo
another
del
thing
Toro's Pacific Rim 2?
Guillermo del Toro's Pacific Rim 2. And I had one. What was it? What's one that? Oh, we got Sony's Popeye instead of the Emoji Movie.
Yep.
And Robin Williams was still alive to actually play Popeye 2.
Yep.
That's what it is.
Yep.
Oh.
Zack Snyder got to finish his movie Justice League.
No, that's Matt. You've steered it back into the universe.
I don't know, man. Josh Whedon's Justice League is the wrong universe.
There's a couple. That's a whole different conversation, but you're not wrong.
Very much so. Alex, what you doing?
I'm going to put these two back to back because I have decided out of nowhere that I am going to complete video games.
Okay.
And
as one should,
like
I would
100 think. But 100% do everything, all the side content, optional content, or just okay.
So one of the reasons is I love Horizon Zero Dawn. I love Horizon Forbidden West, and I told myself I was going to buy a PS5 when there was a game on there that I needed to do. Well, Sony decided to fuck me and announced that Burning Shores would be PS5 only. So I literally bought it and was playing it day one. But I knew I was at the last mission, and I put the game aside. And I believe it said like May 18th was my save point, and I just finished it like 2 days ago. My wife likes to watch me play video games, and she was like doing some crafting stuff, preparing for her next Dungeons and Dragons game. And I put it in, and she's like, "Oh my God, you're going to finish it?" I'm like, "Yes," because she knew that I had stopped. I love this game. I love Aloy. I made an intellectual choice to have Aloy smooch somebody finally after 250 hours of video games, because I put like 120-ish into the first game with all the DLC, and then this one I'm around like 130, and then of course the DLC added like maybe 50 more. But I love this game. Yeah. I love happiness. Aloy smooched another person, and then she said, "And now I'm off to save the world." And I'm like, I know why that design choice was made, because it's a single player game, and they ain't gonna have her and all her people with her.
Yeah, right.
And I found the little Lance Riddick memorial that they put in the game because he's silenced.
That's nice. Yeah, he was in that. Yeah. He was a voice actor and then passed after the new one came out.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I decided to abuse myself in a different manner. You see,
that's so different. You've been listening to the MILF and Me too much now.
Well, I am listening to episode 49. Spank me, please. Real title. Now, so I love the Saints Row video games. I did not start with 1 and 2 because they were just, I heard 1 was
they're GTA knockoffs essentially.
But 3 and 4, and then
4
Get Out
is
of Hell.
Fantastic.
The America gun, where when you start firing it, fireworks go off and it plays a Star Spangled Banner. I mean, the chum gun, where you're in the middle of a city and you fire chum and a shark comes out and eats people. Get Out of Hell is a musical.
Yep. So
I'm like, you know what? It's like $20. it's $20 with the DLC. I'm going to play this, and I started it, and it's not good. The graphics are
The
the
reboot.
Saints Row 2022. The graphics
Yeah.
are buggy. The combat is loose and weird. It's missing the joy. But you know what? The DLC actually saves it that they put out before they abandoned and shuttered poor Volition Studios. May Volition rest in peace. Because the best part of Saints Row 2022 is the side quests where you cosplay. There's an entire thing they call the Dustlanders, where you dress up in cardboard and you're LARPing. One of your crew is involved with it, and you have to defend. And you actually go out there and you're dressed in cardboard suits and you're firing little dart Nerf guns. And when you're firing, she goes pew 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 pew.
Incredible.
Because you get it customized, which is why I love these games. The Saints Row games did it right in that you have a customized character. You get it's been this way since at least 3, where you have your customized character. You choose the gender, you choose the look, you choose the voice, and they don't talk. They just call you boss.
Yep.
Boss, we're going to do this. Hey, boss, we need help. It is very empowering to just be able to decide this is the person and facade that I want to be, my avatar. And this game continued it, just person calling you boss. So my boss is female, and she's running around going pew pew pew, and she's firing dirt guns. And the DLC and continues the storyline where they involve magic in it, and now you're running around with like juice bottles pretending to resurrect your fallen people. The game's terrible. I love it, and I had to finish it because it's so stupid. I hated every moment of it, but I love this damn game.
Playing Saints Row 4, I chose to play as a woman character as well, but they got me in the customization because they just had Nolan North as a voice.
Yeah.
And I ran around with a woman character with Nolan North's voice. I did not care. It was the best thing ever.
Yeah, 3 and 4, I played, I think it was a game, I think I must have hit like Xbox, the games with gold service a while ago. Cause like, I played the first one when it first came out. It was when, at least I don't know if you had started yet, Josh, but when I was working at GameStop, and I tried it and I was like, this sucks. This is like just someone's ripping off, GTA San Andreas. And so then, years later when it was free, I picked it up and I was like, holy shit, this rules. Like, this is amazing. And I didn't 100% complete it, but it was like the closest I ever come with any of those like GTA style games to that point where I'm just like, oh, I'm doing everything just because like I'm having a blast with it. So I was a little bummed to hear some of the reviews of the new one, but I'm glad you at least found some joy in it.
Yeah, so the main storyline is actually really crappy. Your friends are all kind of like super bro-y. Like one dude, his only personality is he doesn't wear a shirt. The other person, one of the other characters, is like her only personality trait is she loves her car. And so you don't feel that integration with having Gat and Kinsey and all the others. They didn't do that very well. But at the same time, like, the LARPing story is fantastic. The other side characters aren't great, but I love the quips that she makes. Like, there's one point where we're running through this building that's on fire with all these stupid weapons, and she just runs into the room, and she's just like, "We have to keep doing this, really? Where do you get all these people?" As you're mowing down hundreds and hundreds of guards, and then at one point, there's a great cutscene where she's like, "Listen, I've already killed everyone else behind me. Can we not do this?"
Well, of course you got to do it.
Yeah, and that's the same. And then she kills everybody but like one person, and then cut to that person, and she's like, "Do I have to kill you too?" And he's like, "Actually, no, it's like my first day. I'll unlock the box and give you the map of where everybody is." And she's like, "Oh, thank you." I mean, there are funny, clever moments with that, like that. You can just kind of tell that this has been in development for like 8 years now, and the engines are weird. Like some parts, like really, the graphics really pop, other parts don't. But if you just want to shoot them up weirdness with stupidity, and it's worth the $30 that it was. And Volition didn't deserve to go down like this.
Yeah. It's been a really tough year for that kind of thing. And I think if you are subscribed to PlayStation Plus, I think it was recently one of the free games. I don't know if it's for this month or a previous month.
It was August's free game.
Yeah. So you may have it, even whether you know it or not, or, I mean, you probably know if you have it, if you've been keeping up with it, but for free is also a pretty good price.
All right. Well, Matt, what you doing?
Like I said, it's the real gamer zone. I've been playing. It's at least as of recording, it's near the end of October, so spooky times, getting close to Halloween. So I was looking for a spooky game, and I decided to pick up the Dead Space remake that came out earlier this year. I think it came out in February. Excuse me.
Either Alex
I
just
think
heard something really good on the MILF and me, or he really liked the Dead Space mention.
Well, it is the spanking episode.
I picked it up on sale, but I think at this point, if you are a Game Pass subscriber on Xbox, it has been added to that service. But I was happy to. I think I bought it for like 30 or $40, and I was happy to pay that price, and just recently finished it. If you don't know Dead Space, it is. I think the first game came out in 2008, and it is a survival horror game that is, as the name implies, set in space. You are someone who has basically been sent to check out a derelict like space mining ship, and there's all kinds of spooky zombie monster guys, and the whole gimmick is like you can't just pump them full of bullets. You have to like strategically cut off their limbs to kill them, because they've got like these long gangly limbs that are like claws and spikes and stuff, and shooting them in the head doesn't do anything. You got to take off the arms, take off the legs, stuff like that. So I think it was earlier this year they put out a remake that is extremely faithful, really close to the original, except it's got modern updates and some quality of life changes. I don't know if how it 1-to-1 is in terms of like, oh, that enemy that was there in the original game and it's also here now, but it is like, if you've played that original game, a lot, like I would say 90% of the spaces are almost 1-to-1, like recreated in high fidelity, high def graphics. It's gorgeous. I think probably the biggest change is that it is sort of more open. In the original game, it was sort of level based, where it's like, okay, this chapter you are in this part of the ship. Here's your mission. Do your thing. When you're done, you jump on the tram and you move on to the next thing. And if you're coming back, it's gonna be because the story is telling you to come back. Now the ship is not one interconnected unit. You still have to jump on the tram, but it is like, oh, you're in engineering for this chapter, and the next chapter is on the bridge or whatever. You now have the ability to travel freely back to those levels and pick up items you missed, or like some side quests that are new to this game require you to jump around the ship and find stuff. So really just a great little game. It was one of those things where a lot of times when like a game is getting remade like this, I'm like, I don't know that this is necessary. The original game is still good and readily available. And in this case, at least, it turned out to be, I think that's still all true, and the original is still a good game, but this is a really great update. And, little things like in the first game, the main character is like a totally silent protagonist, doesn't say a word. And in the second and third game, they gave him more of a character. He's got a voice, he talks, he's, a person. So this game sort of like does that, where he's like talking to characters and, commenting on what's going on. I happen to think that he was like annoying as shit in those second two games, but not really so here. Anyway, great game. If you're looking at this point, I think if I'm doing my math right, this may come out after Halloween, but it's still winter, still spooky, still fall. So if you're looking for something spooky, I would say give it a shot.
Yeah, this is one of those games I haven't played the remake, but I did try the original. And if I remember, that was the first game I ever played with my Turtle Beach surround sound headsets.
Oh,
that was a mistake.
Yep.
The sound design in that game is fantastic, but it creeped the hell out of me. And as everyone knows, I don't like scary things.
Yeah.
So I put it down immediately.
That's another game. And, it's kind of a theme, I guess, so far, because with Assassin's Creed, where that game came out right around the time that I was really spending, like, doing my work at GameStop. And so it was a game like talked about with coworkers, buddies, probably you, Josh, when I think you were probably there at that point, and just
I was probably still knees deep in not Assassin's Creed, in Mass Effect. Like I was around that time, I was just playing Mass Effect like every weekend, unless there was a Halo thing going on, or maybe getting hyped for Arkham Asylum coming out. I think that was 2009.
Yeah, but it's a game I associate with like a very specific time in my life that, is a bygone era now. So like it wasn't nostalgic necessarily, but it was nice to be like, oh, this is just a 4K recreation of like a thing I have been in before, and it's not exactly the same, but it is enough that I'm like, okay, this is that space. Okay, I'm going here because I like remember it, and it was a nice little walk to memory lane, and just a really solid game to boot.
Well, video games are terrible at game preservation. The
Yeah.
companies go under. It's hard to
Yeah.
find them and stuff like that. There's, it was like a little while back ago they were wanting to remake some game, and the original files had been lost. So they were actually asking people if like any of the past employees happen to have like a dev file at home so they could look for it.
Yeah, right.
But
yeah.
And so I'm not necessarily a fan of remaking in its completion like Evil Dead, but I would be a freaking hypocrite because I have bought Demon Souls 5 times now.
Yeah.
I bought it for the PS3. It was the first game I was ever like obsessed with, hundreds of hours. A tradition my wife and I have, my wife has for me from watching me play that game, made it into our vows, which was the line, "I will always tell you when you've died in a video game," because it would pop up, "You died," and she would just kind of comment, "You died." So I bought it originally. I bought it with the PlayStation, not the PlayStation like bestsellers collection. It came with like the CD and like a little booklet. I bought that. I bought it for the PS4, and so maybe I've only bought it 4 times. And now I have bought the remake for the PS5.
Yeah,
and it is sitting there on my shelf, sitting there, waiting for me to play it, because I know if I take this damn disc and I put it in the computer, put the PS5 and I hit install, I'm not going to be seen for about 3 to 4 months.
That's your life. Yeah.
Because I love this damn game.
Yeah. I've never played it, but I've heard such great things. And anyway, go ahead.
So hearing that they did a faithful, it's not a remaster, but it's a remake, but it's a continuation. It's a love story to it. I'm excited about, which is to say, I'm not exactly excited about, apparently they're doing that for Metal Gear Solid 3 and Unreal 5, which I don't know if it needs it.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Anything's gonna,
I have no beef specifically with a remake, right? But a lot of times, a lot of the discourse around it is like, oh, this game needs a remake. What's a game that needs a remake? And I'm like, none. Like, if it's a good game, it's still a good game. It just might show its age a bit, right? We're like, Resident Evil 4 had a remake earlier this year, and it was great. It ruled. But a lot of the discourse around it was like, oh, I went back and played the original Resident Evil 4, and I was like, I cannot believe how dated it was compared to the remake. And I'm like, it's still a good game. It's a game from 2004.
And you can't say that it's dated. It was made when it was made. That's like saying when Duke Nukem came out. You can say Duke Nukem was dated because it came out when it came out and it handled the way it handled.
Yeah.
So you can tell this feels like a game that's been in development for 13 years.
Yeah, and I'm happy with a remake if it's good. But I think that and this is part of the preservation thing, because the gaming as an industry is so focused on the consumer aspect of it. What's the next thing? What's the fancy new shit over the artistic portion of it, the preservation of it. So there is an incentive, and some of this is fostered by the companies too, where game X is a classic and it needs a remake because otherwise it's just an old game, and we're going to new games, better fidelity, better graphics. Oh, can you imagine how great Final Fantasy VII could be if they finally remade it, which they did do, and that game's pretty good. But it's a thing where for a decade before that, people were like, that game needs a remake. It needs one. And I'm like, no, that game is fine. It's great as it is. It's just, you just want something that looks really fancy on a PS3, which is fair, but also that doesn't mean this game. I just, again, I'm repeating myself.
Nothing needs to be remade, especially if it's a classic game. I remember when Super Mario All-Stars came out, and they're like, oh, look, we've updated everything to look like the Super Nintendo pixels. And it's like, that's cool, but is it needed? Even I had to have been 10, 11 when that came out. And even then I was just like, okay, I mean, I still have my NES. I can just plug it in and play the game that I want to play. Like, it's nice that it's all in one cartridge, but I mean, there is something to play. So there is something to playing the original interpretation of that game.
Yeah.
To really date myself, Orson Welles once said to Ted Turner, "Keep your crayons away from my black and white movies." Because there was a trend in the late 80s and early 90s. No one watches black and white movies anymore because they're in black and white. So we just got to colorize everything. And it's like, no one watches black and white movies because they're hard to get access to. Because
and I mean, like,
VHS hadn't come out yet, DVDs, Laserdisc, to make these things accessible so people can buy them, can see them.
Yeah, and I mean, ultimately, if you want, it's, the same by that logic. If you want to recolor the movies, that's fine, but it's not because the old stuff is bad. Like, just make the old stuff available too. It's the George Lucas problem. The problem is not that you like keep tinkering with your movies. It's that you tinker with the movies and then those obviate the original versions, sometimes for the worse, right? Where, like, again, to use the Resident Evil example, they remade Resident Evil 2 and 3 over the last couple of years. Great games. But part of the problem is like, those are the versions of the games now. They don't, the original Resident Evil 2 and 3 are not easily available on like the PlayStation Store or whatever. It's the entire franchise in a fashion is available, but like those versions are kind of lost for whatever reason. But they're great. They're still great games. They're just games from like 97,
Yeah, that's part of the reason why I'm like annoyed that Metal Gear Solid 3 is getting like a Unreal remaster. It's like, no, you should be working on Metal Gear Solid 4 because that thing's locked on the PS3. And while it's still, because I still have a PS3 and I replay that game every few years, it still looks amazing. It plays amazing. It's a fantastic game, but it's locked behind a system that is locked behind a very bizarre game engine, which is why I'm happy that PlayStation apparently hired a hacker. Actually, someone was known for cracking the PS3 engine and actually making it playable, emulatable on PC. And they actually hired him because they made a game preservation unit and hired that person. And what they believe is that they're going to then start unlocking all those PlayStation 3 games to put on the PlayStation Plus pass so that you can stream those old games without needing a PlayStation 3.
That'd be great.
Which is great. That's fantastic. You should have done that a long fucking time ago.
Yeah.
That's why, as much shit as we want to give Nintendo for having a 35-year-old game that's $70, at least they actually are good about carrying their back catalog forward.
Yeah, they'll resell you Super Mario Brothers every 5 years, but it will always be on their system because they know people will buy it and that it's important. So anyway, Dead Space 3 remake is pretty good.
Way off topic. Sorry, Josh.
Oh, no worries. We've got a big meaty topic that we're also still going to talk about here. But really quickly, I did want to talk about a new Apple TV Plus show that just started starring Brie Larson called Lessons in Chemistry. Really good. Similar messaging to Barbie, but delivered in a different way. Brie Larson is a chemist who, because of the era, it's set in the 1950s. So misogyny, sexism, women can't do things. She's held back. So she's essentially she's a lab assistant or a lab tech. She's not allowed to be a chemist in this place she's working. I'm only one episode in. At the time of recording, they just released the third episode. So I've got some catching up to do, but through the first episode, there's a lot of really good stuff that, again, like kind of like Barbie, it's going to make you feel uncomfortable in a way that I think a lot of people need to, because one of the things that happens with Brie Larson's character is there's a very heavy indication that she was abused in college by a teacher. So like whenever she's in a room alone with a man, the first thing she says is, leave the door open. Yeah. And it happens a couple of times in the first episode where someone doesn't acknowledge what she says. And so like her supervisor comes in, shuts the door behind her, and she says, I would prefer it if you leave the door open, please. And she just like is not hearing him because she's having a panic attack and PTSD. And she's just like trying to get the door open. And then in another moment where later on in the episode, she's kind of made a friend who is like the big scientist in the area where there's undoubtedly going to be some kind of love interest going on. He's so excited to tell her something, but it has to be told in private. So he shuts the door, and she's again like, Calvin, you need to open the door. The door needs to be open right now. I need the door open. But he's so excited trying to tell her this thing that he's had a revelation about. He's not hearing her. It's this really interesting both sides of a coin where she's with someone she trusts in Calvin, but she still doesn't trust him enough to leave the door shut. And then she's with her supervisor who she wouldn't trust as far as she could throw him. And both of them are just like, do not shut that door. And it's really good and powerful. And I really can't wait to get more into it because the hook of the show is that somewhere along the line, I assume in like episode 2, she gets fired from her chemist job, and somehow she gets hired on to become a TV cook or a TV chef. And she uses her chemistry experience to create these like masterful dishes.
Yeah, I haven't seen the show, but it's been advertised to me quite a bit whenever I'm, on Apple TV, which has become like quietly like the app with the best originals. They only have originals, but they're all that everyone I've seen is like quite good.
Yeah, and I this, at least through the first episode, I'm very interested in this. It's very well acted. There's some characters that are character actors that you'll see show up. You're like, oh, I know that person. But Brie Larson doing Brie Larson things, being a very good actress, and giving a very good performance. Set in the 50s, so they've set up a lot of really good stuff. And I recommend it after one episode. But Alex, have you played Spider-Man?
Before we do that, can I do one quick thing? I just want to mention,
as long as it's Star Trek related.
It's not.
Damn.
I know we want to get to Spider-Man, but I just want to be
our first Star Trek free what you doing?
I think it might be.
Oh no.
Super Mario Wonder came out this last week. I know you didn't get a chance to play it, Josh. I played a little bit of it. I've been playing mostly co-op with my wife, and I just want to say quick, I know we want to get to Spider-Man and really kind of enjoy that meal. But it's a new 2D Mario game, the first one in a while, and it's chef's kiss. It's already, it's great. It is like Nintendo at its most inventive and creative, just in the few levels I've been able to play. Really wonderful art style that is like sort of a new approach for Mario. Not like drastically so, but it's like reminiscent of like claymation or like a particularly creative like 3D movie, like animated movie. Just tons of character. Like something that they that happens is like when you go to jump on a Goomba, at some point in the arc of your jump, they will notice, and like their face is like this horrified like scream. Not like it's not horrified necessarily, but they're like, and you can't, listeners can't see what I'm doing, but like their mouth agape, their eyes wide, and it's just like, as soon as I noticed that, I was like, oh, it's wonderful. It's a really wonderful little game with lots of really neat touches. So, it's not quite a full what you doing because I've only played a little bit of it, but it's good. I'd recommend it if you like Mario. Nintendo, you done did it again. Reggie, you did it.
I have heard that Wonder is like the best 2D Mario since Super Mario World, or like that's how it's being heralded.
I would say,
I don't think there's been that many unless you count handhelds. But
well,
like
there's
Super Mario Brothers Wii.
There were 4 new Super Mario Brothers games on the DS, the Wii, the 3DS, and the Wii U, and those are pretty good games. But I think they kind of get the short shrift now because like they all looked exactly the same. They had the same art style, and they were all very similar, and they all came out within like 3 years, like four of those games in 3 years. It was a lot. So they're good games, but this is better. So like, the Mario world to this is, I think not totally out of left field. And it's like, it's just Nintendo like doing their like creative, weird stuff that they're really good at. And Alex, you were going to say something, right?
Well, I was gonna say, if we're giving accolades to interrupt Josh and keep him away from Spider-Man, I have accolades. I have been reading this author named Mary Roach for the last 20 years, and I've recently completed one of her newest books. It's called Grunt: The Curious Science of Humans at War. Mary Roach is kind of a snarky, lovely, investigative writer. Her first book was Stiff: The Curious Lives of Human Cadavers, which basically tells about all the things that happen to your body after you die, how you can donate it, how it's used for for product safety and all this stuff. Then they have Spook, the science trying to tackle the questions of the afterlife. She had one of my favorite damn books, which is called Bonk: The Curious Coupling of Science and Sex, about like how tough it is for science to actually investigate or get funding to actually study sex and reproduction and stuff like that. And she tells this incredibly humorous story in that one where she and her husband get an MRI so that they can actually see how people, a male and female, join together. But to get proper studying of that, he has to be stimulated. They have to freeze while the MRI does its clunky thinking thing, and and they're being talked to about, can you hold that position, please, and all this stuff. And my favorite part of that is apparently at the end of it, because you've been in there for like 30 minutes in various poses while the machine does its thing. And apparently the preview are like, okay, we're going to turn off the camera now. So if y'all want to finish, go ahead. She did one called Packing for Mars about all the things that NASA's doing to try to prepare for that. But this one's called Grunt, and it's about our military, the veterans, the injured veterans, the things they're doing for safety, the things that they're doing for preservation. And it is quite a powerful book in which you find out just kind of like how much the government tries to do, but also how much the soldiers themselves fail to do. And that like one of the biggest things is hearing loss. And if you are a soldier without hearing loss, you kind of feel stigmatized that you are not doing your job, even though they're giving you they're giving you earplugs and these materials. You're working with people who have suffered hearing loss, who aren't using the equipment and stuff like that. And another one is that they're trying to assist soldiers who are injured. And there's a program that they're doing there where they try to preserve your ovaries or sperm in case something happens to you and you're not able to physically reproduce, and how difficult that is to get these young men and women who are going off to war to actually submit to such a procedure. Because of course you're going to live, you're going to be fine.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Stuff. And she's just one of my favorite authors. I recently just finished the book. I had picked it up in 2017 and stopped like 50 pages from the end. And Kindle was like, would you like to pick up where you left off? I'm like, I didn't finish this.
Yeah, I guess I will. Yeah.
Yeah. And I finished it, and it ends with this very, very powerful chapter about the process that happens, and the process that happens when you've unfortunately passed away, and the military review of everything that could have been done to save you. And that chapter is just kind of heart-wrenching, because she starts off part of the book with, she goes to like not live fire exercises, but exercises where they have people volunteer to be victims or injured, soldiers and stuff like that, and how much money is actually put into very, very realistic bleeding like dolls, but also they have people there. And then it ends with, some of these soldiers actually don't make it back, and this is what happens. And I like Mary Roach. She's very witty, she's very sarcastic, she's very fun. But I just want to give an accolade to a book I actually liked.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about her stuff. I've got several of her books in this house. My wife reads her, but I've never gotten around to it, so maybe I will finally pick one up. Yeah. Sorry, Josh. It's time
Well,
for
that's
Josh.
fine. It just means the listeners got to listen a little bit longer to us.
Josh, I believe 16 minutes ago you asked a question. What was that?
Alex, have you had a chance to play Spider-Man 2?
I have not played Spider-Man 2, but Josh, update. I figured out how to move my PS4 save to my PS5, so I do have my save file for Spider-Man.
All right.
And Miles Morales, and the Miles Morales DLC is good.
Yeah. Oh
All
yeah.
right. Well, spoilers ahead for Marvel's Spider-Man 2 on PS5.
Minor spoilers. I'm not that far into it.
Minor spoilers. Yeah, I'm like 3 or 4 hours in. I just hit level 15 yesterday morning. So like I haven't picked it up since I got the suit that comes with that one, which I'm very excited for that one.
Yeah, so we may
won't spoil certain suits.
Well, I think it's fair game for
It's not like it's a story essential suit.
Yeah, I think
I've already seen the IGN, Kotaku, GameSpot ranking of all the suits, so they already went, and that was ranked an hour after the damn game came out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they get their review copies, but I mean, I'm having a lot of fun with the game. I was nervous about the web wing mechanic, like how convoluted is it going to be. It does kind of feel like a cheat in some circumstances, but with as massive as the map is, I do think it was a necessary thing because web swinging is only going to get you so far so fast.
Yeah, I think it's really good. The minor breakdown. It's the follow up to 2008's Spider-Man game on the PS4. If you liked that game, this is just that but bigger. And if you didn't like it, then I don't know that there's anything here for you. But it's the same basic gameplay loop. It's the big open world with the city, swing around. There's random crimes, there's story missions, there's side stuff. But yeah, I'm really vibing with it so far. And both this and the Miles Morales game that came out in, I want to say 2020 when the PS5 hit, both of which were very similar for me, where I just really open world games. I like them. I like exploring those worlds. I'm almost never the kind of person who does everything, who gets 100%, who gets a platinum trophy, whatever. Spider-Man and Spider-Man Miles Morales are both games that I did literally everything. And on a long enough timeline, I'm almost certain that's going to be the case for this as well.
Spider-Man 2018 is the first game I ever platinumed.
Yeah.
I don't care to do trophies, and I think I ended up doing like all but 11 trophies just by playing the story and doing the things I was doing. And I was like, screw it, I'll see what I can do.
Yeah, because that one of the great if you like trophies, if you don't, whatever. But one of the great things about the game is I think Insomniac, the developer, makes it not easy because you have to like put in the time and put in the effort. But some games are like, if you want to get all the achievements or whatever, you have to play New Game Plus on like impossible difficulty or whatever. This game is like, there's got the one. We're just gonna you're gonna get most of it just by playing the game, and it's like if you do the side quests, you're gonna get a trophy, or if you do the story, you're gonna get a bunch of trophies, and just it's a fun completion process, which some of those games are not. I'm not generally a completionist, but with these games I am into it.
So I have a question because I haven't played it yet, but are you guys aware that the Chrysler building is missing from the game?
It's been missing since Miles Morales. Yeah. Apparently there's some kind of licensing issue where I believe it's either a Saudi or an Arab company now owns the Chrysler building, and they are being very stringent on its usage in alternate forms of media.
Yeah, I didn't realize that you can trademark a fucking building.
Yeah, right.
Neither did I.
Yeah, apparently it was like a law in like 1992 or something like that you can actually trademark. You can't like trademark like styles, but you can actually go like, this is a work of art, this entire building that everyone can see at any time and any point by just walking around.
Merchandising.
Thank you, Mel Brooks.
Real money from the movie is made.
Yeah, so they apparently, I probably read the same article you did, where that the people who bought it apparently are very stringent about allowing it to be used and couldn't reach a deal with apparently a few video games now.
Mm-hmm.
To your point about the web wings, Josh, I don't know that I was quite as skeptical about them, but I was like, I don't know if I'm ever going to use them. This swinging is so fun, but it's also just like, it's as a supplement, it is so they're great. And there's some like side missions that are like, you should use that. You should use this, but like, sometimes you're just swinging around and there's these like jet streams, these wind streams where you're like that. If you get into it in your web wings, you will just like go through it and shoot through it through these rings where you just are in a flow state.
You get like a little boost. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's really fun. Just like, okay, I'm on my way here. I'm going in this direction. I'm going to just like shoot in there, and you can get across the city so quickly. And I'm reminded of something you mentioned. It feels like cheating. One of the things with Tears of the Kingdom earlier this year, and I know you, Josh, have had different, maybe slightly different opinions about some of those mechanics than I did, but like one of the things that they've talked about in the aftermath is the ability to jump through like surfaces, right? I forget exactly what it's called. It's called ascend, where like
Yeah.
you're on the ground, you shoot up through a ceiling, and then you're on top of the mountain or whatever. That came about because like they were using that as like a development tool. We're like, okay, we need to get around quickly, so like this will unlock this ability. And then they're like, wait a second, this is fun. Like sometimes cheating can be kind of fun, and so it kind of feels like in it's in that vein of cheating where it's like kind of, it's not maybe necessarily a Spider-Man-y thing to do, but it is like cool and fun and doesn't hurt anything in a way that reminded me of that specific aspect of Zelda, and I'm really vibing with it.
Yeah, and to the point of the web wings as well, I do want to talk about at least the opening sequence, where the tutorial sequence, essentially with the giant Sandman fight. But one thing the game kind of, we'll say, blew its load early on me was in the opening sequence.
Wait. Did you just say Spider-Man blew
Yes.
his load on you
Yes, you did.
early?
Yeah.
I believe that is episode 20 of the MILF and Me Kinky Winky that you're referencing.
So the opening sequence of the game, when you see Peter and Miles, is Peter is now a teacher at Miles' school, and something's happening. The Sandman's attacking, and he's become a kaiju. And so Miles has this really funny moment where he's like, "Mr. Parker, I need you to help me go to the bathroom." And so they run up to the roof and they see it, and Peter's like, "I'm so gonna get fired." And they start web swinging, and then you take over as Peter, and I'm swinging, and as I'm getting across the Brooklyn Bridge, I see Miles gliding. I'm like, why can't I do that? And then throughout the sequence with the Sandman, you eventually get to a point where he like chucks you a really long distance, and it's like, "Hey, press triangle to deploy your web wings." I'm like, "Oh, I couldn't do that while Miles could do it while he's an NPC."
That's a pretty funny that feels like a thing you were not supposed to see, because like,
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I'm saying. Like they blew their load a little early, because I'm like, why can Miles do this right now? Why can't I do this? Like, how do you do this?
Because it's a thing in the story where Peter's
the
like,
web wings, it's like, woo! My technology is working. Like it's supposed to be this big cool moment. Like I saw Miles do that like 15 minutes ago.
Yeah, and Miles is like, "Are you sure? Did you test them? Are they going to work?"
Exactly. Yes, I forgot about that part. Yeah, Miles is like, has it been tested enough? He's like, "We're going to do the test now."
So the entire time you guys keep talking about the wingsuit, which is in a game that just came out, I'm thinking of the wingsuit from Saints Row 2022, which has the same mechanic where you fall and you pop out your wingsuit, but then you hit little circles to boost up, and I'm like, man, I hope it works better in the Spider-Man game than it does in that, because that's clunky as hell.
There's like air vents and stuff that you can like find, and it'll propel you vertically.
Okay.
Yeah, I've not played Saints Row, but in my experience, it's very smooth, and basically it's just if you're in this little stream, you're moving mostly kind of on a path and then you can like kind of dip out of it at any time and just keep your momentum going. And it's a good way to like, because the city is bigger, they've added a bunch more boroughs. There's like one of the giant rivers that's like cutting through it. I forget which river it actually is in New York. So like, not easily web swingable if you're trying to get across. One of the really like small touches that I love, that's just real. It's one of those like really small, oh, this is a next gen game kind of thing. Josh, have you unlocked any of the fast travel yet?
I don't think so.
So I haven't used it much because again, the web swinging is so much fun, but it's a thing where like you have to, it's a thing where you have to do a certain number of the side activities to get your various boroughs, your various areas of New York to the fast travel point. And like once you have it unlocked, it is not a fast travel point. It is, you're on the map and you're in this district and you're like looking at it and you're like, okay, I want to go right here to this intersection, and you click fast travel and it zooms in on the map, back into the gameplay, and then Spider-Man swings in. It is like instantaneous. It is like, and it is anywhere. It's like, oh, I want to go to.
It's
I
not
want
like
to
the
go.
loading scene where you take the trains from the last game.
Yeah, or yeah, you're gonna end up on the route on a specific route for something. It's okay. I'm gonna go to this point in this district, and I'm going to be right there, which is like a small thing, but is also like not a small thing, right? Because it feels like that's the kind of thing that has been a dream of gamers everywhere for years. Like the elimination of loading times and loading screens. Where here it's like I'm halfway across the map, and I need to get here, and I don't feel like web swinging right now, and boom, I'm there without anything.
Yeah, I read an interview with the game designers, and apparently it's actually quicker than you're describing because you have to like hold triangle to confirm. They put that hold in because people were getting confused and traveling too quickly. Like their
Oh
game
wow,
testers were like, look at the map, and they would hit like triangle and then be there, and they're like, I was looking. So they put
yeah,
hold to confirm to slow you down.
yeah.
Hmm.
Oh, that's really
Yeah, but
interesting.
Yeah, I haven't run into too many gamey things that really like take me out of it. I do think like the continuing with the Sandman stuff, the only thing that really kind of bothers me with anything with that is in the Sandman side missions, you have to like pull the triggers to rip open a crystal that contains a memory of the Sandman, and like they do the trigger pressure or whatever that is with the new controllers. I'm like, I don't need that. I don't care that it's like, oh, it's a little more tense because I'm breaking a crystal. Woo. I like those are little things that like I don't need. Like I can say they're a nice touch, but it doesn't add anything for me. But
Yeah, it's
overall,
one of
like
those things that if it was gone, you wouldn't notice it. But I think it is neat that it is. It's a thing that it's a thing that PS5 controller can do that a lot of games don't use. So it's nice to see it more than it's like necessary.
yeah, yeah, and it's something that Sony invested money in, so they were like, this is our big Sony game, so we gotta make sure we utilize it in some fashion. But it does showcase the PS5's capabilities really well. Like there are little moments where a podcast will turn on and you'll hear like a little jingle come from your controller, but there's things happening on the screen too, and like they do a really good job of immersing you into the environment through stuff like that. Another thing that I so minor spoilers again. I'm doing everything I can to stay away from spoilers because I'm gonna try and beat this game by the time like the month of November is done. But the game opens with Norman Osborn giving Harry the symbiote, like just he kind of like touches Harry on the shoulder and the symbiote rolls off of Norman onto Harry. And so like I'm wondering, is the game trying to curveball me and say that Norman is going to be Venom or Harry's going to be Venom? Because I think they confirmed Eddie Brock is not in this game. So like there's a whole thing of like who is going to be Venom. And I feel like it kind of has to be Harry, but I'm also very invested in what Harry's doing early on in this game because he's like it created this foundation that's named after his mom and Aunt May, and there's all sorts of stuff happening where I'm like Harry seems very genuine, but they're also taking some like really interesting aspects of, or interestingly taking aspects of really bad Spider-Man movies and throwing them into this game to be like, look, these storylines can work if we get the time. Because like you've got giant Sandman in a Venom based Spider-Man game.
Can I
You've
ask you
got
for some
Harry Osborn with
clarification?
a disease. So
Can I ask
like,
you for some clarification? Did you just say a
yeah,
bad Spider-Man movie?
I'm more referring to Spider-Man 2, not Spider-Man 3.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Less
Okay.
well received, we'll say.
Okay. All right. Okay. We
I
don't. We
thought
we don't
Spider-Man
have a
2 was
problem.
I thought Spider-Man 2 was the best received Spider-Man movie they've ever released.
Amazing Spider-Man.
Amazing
2.
Spider-Man 2.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
If we're not talking
All
bad
right.
about Spider-Man 3, we don't got a problem. We don't got a problem.
Okay.
I'm not saying bad things. I'm just less well received, we'll say. But like you've got Giant Sandman, you've got Venom in the game, you've got these weird aspects, and then you've also got Harry who's dealing with this like virus of some kind. And it feels like they're gonna throw the curveball and be like, Harry's the bad guy, just like in Amazing Spider-Man 2. And look how awesome it is. It almost feels like Sony's trying to do a little bit of a reclamation project on these stories that fans did not like.
Maybe, and I think you said you were a few like 3 or 4 hours in. I think I've put in maybe 10 at this point, and I'm farther in the story than you, but I've not. I spent a lot of time doing side missions and stuff because that's just how I played the previous two games. Where like a
Mhm.
side mission becomes available, and then I'm like zip 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 around the map.
Yeah.
So I've not gotten to the point where any of that has been revealed. Like I don't, I could not tell you for sure who Venom is, for example, right?
Well, I wouldn't want you to. I'm just speculating and saying like
Well,
I don't know what the game wants me to think.
well,
But
I
I
just
play
mean
similarly to you.
what I'm about to say is not informed necessarily by knowledge that I'm trying to obfuscate, right? Like I'm not trying to like tip my hand about anything with Venom. But it does seem to me like since the start, since like the early marketing and stuff, the game seems to really be taking the Harry Osborn story, which is the sickness is not part of it, and except insofar as like in the comics he's sick because he's addicted to drugs, which is so I think they've reinterpreted that in more modern stories where like he just has an illness, and I think but eventually becomes the Green Goblin himself, right? And like that's the story in Spider-Man 3, that's the story in Amazing Spider-Man 2, that's the story in the original comics. So I've always kind of assumed that like I've seen people say, oh, what if they're gonna zag on you and it's Peter who's Spider-Man or who's Venom rather, and I like maybe, but it seems to me that they're not trying to like pull to be surprising necessarily. They're just doing the Harry Osborn story, but instead of the Green Goblin, they're doing it by way of Venom. And maybe I'm wrong
Mhm.
about that, but it seems like that's the kind of thing where I don't think that they are necessarily. I think they are sort of telegraphing what they're doing, but not like in a bad way. Which is not to refute anything you said. I just think that's where my head's at. Where it seems like yeah, that's what they're doing. It seems like
Yeah,
and
it's got to be a swerve because Harry's being a little too generous with his time and altruistic. There's just too much there that I feel like is gonna lead to that swerve.
and so much of the like and again I've not like gotten into any of even like the black suit stuff that usually prefaces that we know is part of this game that always prefaces
Yeah, I
the
haven't
Venom
gotten
stuff.
there. The last thing I did was unlock the first Craven base, or I found the first Craven base.
Yeah, I was going somewhere with that and now it has escaped me. Gosh, I apologize. I just think that it's doing some pretty classic Spider-Man stuff in a new way. Like I don't even think necessarily that Harry is like. I think it's gonna be more of a tragic villainy thing where like there's a period where Spider-Man kind of loses himself. That's part of the Venom story, and I imagine like then if it is Harry who becomes Venom, it's gonna be a similar thing where he's like a genuinely good guy who gets lost because of illness, and then maybe the Venom symbiote or whatever.
Yeah, if it's anything like Spider-Man 2, it's going to be because it's going to be like, you don't want me to die. I don't want to die. Like, I need the thing because it's going to keep me alive. Give me
Yeah.
your blood, Spider-Man.
But so far, I'm really digging it. Like, it's really interesting. Like, it is Spider-Man 2. It is a sequel to this original game, and Miles Morales in every way. Like, it's so like every character I think for the most part who is alive at the end of those games has been followed up on at this point with in both those games. Like in that from characters from Miles game are showing up, and it's following from Spider-Man 1, and it's like kind of there's like a recap video you can watch, but it kind of just throws you right in where like it expects you to know who Miles's kind of crush, who happens to be a deaf girl, is because who was a side character in the Miles game. It kind of expects you to kind of remember what went on with Aunt May and Miles's uncle, which is like very cool. Where you know it's just a lot of I don't know. I'm kind of rambling, but it's just a great game that I'm really having a lot of fun with.
Yeah, I don't think it's Game of the Year quality stuff, but I do think it's really good. Like, it is arguably the best Spider-Man game they've made because of the improvements that they've made. Like, you can switch between Peter and Miles on the fly. You just open
Yeah.
up the app through your controller and you can be like, I want to be Peter now. I'm going to be Miles. And they feel distinctly different through their combat styles and through the way they swing. And they do a great job with all of that.
So are you saying that Spider-Man 2 is better than Spider-Man 2, or are you saying that Spider-Man 2 is better than Spider-Man 2? Because to me, Spider-Man 2 is the best Spider-Man game of all time.
Well, I think you're right.
I think I am.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree.
But there's there's some side activities that only one of the Spider-Man can do, and it's really neat. Where it's like it's not like you can't do this. It's hey, Peter can do this one. Do you want to switch to Peter? And then other little touches were like they decoupled the crimes from the completion in this one, which I appreciate.
Oh,
But also
good.
means I haven't been doing a ton of them. But when I have been, the first one I did, I like zoomed in and I was like, armored car robbery or whatever, and like I got there and Miles is already there. He's like he is wailing on those dudes. So then
Yeah.
it's like a mini Spider-Man team up, and then at the end he's like, okay, see ya. It's just
Yeah,
That's
really
cool.
really neat.
And I do appreciate in like the car chase sequences, they get rid of the button mashing of the square button. Like you just you web up one guy, Peter webs up the rest of the car, and then he stops it, or Miles does. Like it's real nice streamlining of a lot of the things that became annoying after so long with other ones.
Yeah, and like I think the first game had the thing where it was like it had the suit powers, right? Where each suit had an associated ability that you could turn on and off. Once you unlocked it, you could just equip it whenever. And they've done away with that in favor of just more streamlined options, either like on as part of your gadgets, as part of your powers, or as part of like their skill trees. So
Mhm.
that's useful too. Where like you could just get all these things as opposed to like, oh, I really like this ability, but that means I don't get that ability because it's a suit ability and you have to pick one. Just really thoughtful, like you said, streamlining the mechanics. And I really like I I love unlocking suits in these fucking games. It's so good. I
Yeah.
unlocked, minor spoilers. I unlocked the Spider-Verse noir suit today,
Ooh.
and it's incredible. It's great because in I want to in the Miles Morales game they had the suit that was based on Into the Spider-Verse, and it animated like the movie where like they're taking out frames of
Yeah, that was a
animation, so it has
suitability. So you
yeah
could actually tie that to other suits too, which was kind of cool. But I mean,
yeah
obviously, it looks better in the Into the Spider Verse suit.
yeah, and this is the same way where like you've got that sort of kind of unique animation, but also it's the Nick Cage character from those movies. He's got the big flowing coat, which is great. It is. I was running around in it, and I was like, man, this looks. It's chef's kiss, chef's kiss. I've only got like half the suits, I think, but I'm still like, I'm trying to stay unspoiled for what I haven't gotten. So sorry, Josh, that I spoiled that one for you, but
No, I've
just
seen that one. I saw someone doing the. I don't know if you know about the Rubik's cube trick.
oh, I think I've heard of that. Is that where you like glitch out and become a cube?
Yeah, well, no. If you do a dive off of a building, if you hold down and square while you're falling, Peter will just kind of go into a crisscross sit, and he'll pull out a Rubik's cube, and
Oh
he'll
yeah,
solve the Rubik's cube while you fall. So
that's
it's kind
rad.
of like doing like the flips and the spinnies, but it's during the free. You can only do it during a free fall, which is really cool.
That's
'Cause,
awesome.
like someone unlocked the noir suit, and he's like, "I had to do it," and then they did the Rubik's cube.
That's really good.
I know you have a certain opinion of Carnage, which I'm more or less in line with you. Where I feel he's kind of superfluous, but he's a villain that, if done written well into a story, can serve a really good purpose. With it being a symbiote story, do you want to see Carnage in like a DLC story, or do you want to see Carnage in? I don't think they would do Carnage in Spider-Man 3. I just feel like that would be like treading extra ground that's already covered in this game. But would you want to see Carnage in these games at all?
Well, I'll tell you what. I think we are going to find out how we feel about that sooner rather than later. I'll say that. Sooner or later. I'll say that much. Having played some more of the game.
I don't think that answers my question. I'm asking your opinion. Like, if if it is confirmed or like whatever, we find out that Carnage is coming to this game or the sequel. How excited is Matt, or how
Well,
ambivalent is Matt?
I don't know. I mean, I don't necessarily like hate Carnage, right? I think that there's a time, and in some ways we're in that time now in the comics where like there's they can get a little symbiote crazy at times, right? Where everybody loves symbiotes, so we're throwing symbiotes at the wall and seeing what sticks. And it sort of starts with Carnage. So I don't have a problem with Carnage if they, for DLC or a third game, which I think is almost certainly going to happen at this point because it's like one of the best-selling PS5 games to date. I'm okay with seeing it, but I would prefer, considering that we know this game is so Venom centric, I would like to see them focus on something more in a macro sense, right? Something else. So I don't want it to be like the first game is Dr. Octopus in a larger sense, the second game is Venom, and then the third game is Carnage. If you want to do some Carnage stuff on the side, I'm not beefing with it. But, let's do a different villain or two instead of like doing, and again, maybe I'll be so into what they do with Venom that I'll be clamoring for more symbiote stuff, but that's fine. Let's see a bunch of different stuff. I don't know what happens with Norman and Harry in this game, but let's see some Green Goblin shit or something, but
yeah, we definitely need to be seeing some Green Goblin shit. They've been building towards it for 2 games.
Yeah.
So unless they throw a random Green Goblin into DLC or at the end of this game, which I doubt,
yeah.
I don't know why the third game wouldn't be Green Goblin centric.
And like I said, I think that I will say that I think they have Carnage on the brain.
God, I hope
to what
not.
degree that becomes manifest, I guess, remains to be seen.
I am tired of Carnage. I find Carnage stupid as fuck. And I want Carnage to be left in the 90s where he deserves to be. Carnage is just stupid. Unless it's
Carnage-
She Carnage is hot. Just like
Carnage,
She Venom.
Carnage
But
is great when it's just like, we need a story that is just a villain who is just like on a rampage and doesn't have anything else going on. Like everything is about this guy like going on a killing spree or whatever. The only problem is that you can only do that story so often. So like when he becomes really popular and they're like, keep using Carnage, you have to like keep finding new things to do with him, and it wears out its welcome really quickly. Where like I think he's a character that is cool and you can use, but you have to use him sparingly, and especially because he's so associated with Venom, anything Venom almost immediately is like, ooh, Carnage, right? Like we saw that with the movies where like, I'm also not like the biggest Venom guy in the world, but there's lots of Venom stuff you can do. And the thing they pivot to almost immediately is, oh, we did Venom, now we got to do Carnage, So I'm not against Carnage. I would like them not to do that, what I just said, where it's, oh, we did Venom, now we got to do Carnage as like the main thing.
Spider-Man has a deep rogues gallery. You can do more. You can do more than just Goblin and then Venom and Carnage.
Yeah, there's a lot you can do.
Yeah, it's just
I do
in my
appreciate
opinion.
that one of the things about these games is they have done they do deep cuts. They play the hits, but also they do deep cuts where like there's a whole side quest with, a relatively minor Spider-Man character named Wraith, who's like an anti-hero. They're doing a lot of the characters that and like between these 3 games, we've seen a lot of like classic villains, but there's also a deep bench that they can and have pulled from. So I think hopefully, I don't know that we're gonna see, I don't know, Shriek.
I want to see the Walrus.
Hey, I'm down for that. Do a Walrus, I think whatever the main villain is of Spider-Man 3 or the DLC is going to be someone that you would expect, like someone who is probably like headlined a movie or is part of a major story from the comics. But I would expect lots of like other little jobbers to show up too.
All I know is if they do a stupid thing where they announce the DLC and the main bad guy is Kraven, so that they can actually pimp the Kraven movie at the same time, Sony can go fuck themselves.
Well, I'm pretty sure that was the idea with Kraven being one of the main antagonists of this game, is they could tie it into Kraven's Last Hunt and promote the trades of that, as well as Aaron Taylor Johnson as a version of Kraven, whose dad I believe is Russell Crowe in the movie, who is like the Sergei Kravenov.
Who the hell hasn't Russell Crowe fathered? I mean, he fathered Superman, he fathered Hercules, he's fathered Kraven. I mean, the dude gets around. I mean, has anyone?
He's making movies, making songs, fighting around the world with his steamboat Tugger. All right, well let's get out of here, guys. We've kept everyone a little longer this week, but I think this has been a really fun what you doing. Matt,
Spider-Man's
you want
good.
to tell everyone about the Discord?
Yeah. I mean, if you like what we've done here, talking about random nerdy shit for an hour and a half, if you like, especially if you like me going off on tangents and repeating myself over and over again, and you want to see all that stuff and more in the text form, then the Discord is where it's at. It's a good time, good people, lots of Star Trek talk, unlike this episode. So yeah, come join us.
All right, well, thank you, Matt and Alex, for being here tonight to share what you're doing. Don't forget to join the Discord. Follow us on all the social media platforms, Talking Smack Pod, including YouTube, where you can now find our podcasts, as well as Blue Sky, Instagram, Threads, Hive Social, Post News, Facebook, TikTok, and Lonnie's website. Email us what you doing at tsmackpod@gmail.com. Our questions, comments, concerns, reviews. Thank you to Leo Allen for our musical themes, Beppo for our original avatars, Retro Whale Studios for our Ricky avatar. Please like, subscribe, rate, review on your podcatcher of choice. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button. I've been waiting forever to say that. But most importantly, thanks everyone for listening and take care.
And thank you, Antonio and Diana from the Milf and Me podcast for this musical remix. Watch Lower Decks, everyone.
Okay, I love you. Bye-bye.
Play Star Trek Online.